Hello, and welcome to the 8th grade English Language Arts video lesson. My name is Victoria Guerin, and I am Richmond Public Schools Secondary English Language Arts Instructional Specialist, and I'm also the World Language Instructional Specialist. I am so excited to work with you today. I will be with you for the remainder of this week for the 8th grade video lessons. As I represent my screen, please go ahead and grab a piece of notebook paper or paper and a pen or a pencil. Let's get started. So, this is our 8th grade reading lesson. For this week, we have 2 skills that we're going to learn or review about. We're going to learn about theme, which we will start tomorrow. Today, we're going to talk about determining the meaning of words or word meanings. Before we start, I have a riddle of the day that I would like you to see if you can figure it out. I will give you 30 seconds to answer this riddle. So take a moment, read the riddle, and see if you can find the answer. Okay, so the riddle says, Billy's mother had 5 children. The first was named Layla, the second was named Lily, the third was named Lily, and the fourth was named Lolo. What was the 5th child named? Now, some of you might think that the 5th child would be named Lulu. But if you look back at the beginning of the riddle, it says that Billy's mother had 5 children. And 4 children's names have already been mentioned: Layla, Lily, and Lolo. So the 5th child has to be Billy, because that's the name that they provided us at the beginning of the riddle. I hope that you got this correct and that you didn't get tricked by the alternate answer that you might have thought was right, which was Lulu. All right, let's go over our objectives for the week. For today, we're going to focus on 8.4b, which is to use context, structure, and connotations to determine meaning and to differentiate among multiple meanings of words and phrases. And tomorrow, we're going to cover 8.5c, which is explain the development of theme. I took a minute to make sure that you could see that I shaded the verbs and I underlined the nouns so that you could take a moment and understand the different tasks that we have. So we're going to use connotations to determine and differentiate, which means to see differences. We're going to use connotations to determine the meaning of multiple meanings of words, because sometimes words have more than one meaning. So that's our skill that we're going to work on for today. Our learning target for today is, today I will learn how words can have multiple meanings. Take a minute, and as I review this vocabulary for you, you may also take notes as I go along. So we have two vocabulary words that I want us to cover. We have connotations, which are the feelings or ideas associated with the word. Sometimes they can be positive or they can be negative, and even sometimes they can also be neutral. And we have the word denotations, which is a word's basic meaning or dictionary definition. So if you look at the picture that I provided, if you see that word at the top, what it says abbreviate, which is to make something shorter or shorten, that is a denotation because that is the actual meaning of the word. But you can also have connotation, which means that the word shorten can have a negative, positive, or neutral feeling. And what we're going to do today is look at words to determine if the word has a negative, positive, or neutral feeling to it. Take one more minute if you want to jot these definitions down to keep for your notes. Okay, so now we're going to practice. And the activity that I have, which you also might have a copy as well, starts with an introduction where again, it provides us a definition. So let's review it one more time. Words have two kinds of meanings that convey very different ideas or images. A word's denotation is its basic meaning or dictionary definition. A word's connotation is the feeling or impression that people associate with the word. A word can have a positive, negative, or neutral connotation. When you write, think about the connotations of the words you choose and the effect they have or will have on your readers. So if you look at the example, now I'm going to choose the second example where it talks about a car. And it says, my aunt picked me up in her compact two-door car. So you know that if a car has only 2 doors and not 4 doors, that this is a very small car. So we know that the word compact means small. And the word compact has a more positive connotation or meaning to it. Let's look at the second one. My aunt picked me up in her small two-door car. So the word small doesn't really have a negative or positive connotation in this use of the word. So this is more of a neutral connotation. And then we have the word the negative connotation. And it says, my aunt picked me up in her cramped two-door car. So we know that when we're cramped, we're squeezed in this really tight space. You're in the back of the car and you have no room for your elbows. And maybe you've got your brother on one side and your sister on the other and all this luggage. And you're really tight in there. So the word cramped has a negative connotation to it. It provides these pictures or images of your head that you're just so tight that you can barely move around. So those are our examples. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to do a guided practice. And I'm going to do a few with you, and then I'm going to want you to do a few on your own. So let's read the directions together. It says, read each sentence. Each underlined word has a neutral or a positive connotation. Write a word that has a negative connotation to replace each underlined word. All right, so we've got to write a word that has a negative connotation to it, a negative meaning to replace the word. All right, so let's look at sentence number 1. It was adventurous of me to try out for the role of a villain. All right, so adventurous is when you are going on an adventure. And when you're going on an adventure, you are trying something new and exciting, and you're excited about it. We need a word to replace the word adventurous. What would be a good word to replace that word? We also want to think about and make sure that it fits correctly inside of the sentence. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to think about it. Okay, there are several different words that we could use here. We could use the word reckless. It was reckless of me to try out for the role of a villain. We could also use the word careless. And when you're careless, it means you could care less, which means that you're not worried about what's going to happen. So it has more of a negative connotation or negative meaning to it. So we could say it was careless of me to try out for the role of a villain. Let's do number 2 together. I'm quiet and shy, and the character is powerful. So the word powerful means full of power. You have a lot of power in some way. Maybe it's physical power, maybe it's mental power, but somehow you have a lot of power, a lot of control. Okay? Think of a word, a negative word that we could use to replace the word powerful. So the word powerful has a positive connotation or meaning to it, and we need a negative connotation. If someone were to call you pushy, meaning that you're always in somebody's face, pushing them around, that would be a very negative connotation. So we could use the word pushy here. I'm quiet and shy, and the character is pushy. Another word for pushy is domineering. When you're domineering, it means that you dominate someone, you overtake them. You are in control. And another word for control would be to be powerful. So if we use the word domineering here, I'm quiet and shy, and the character is domineering, which means that the character dominates over the person. That would have a negative connotation to it. We're going to do one more together. And then the last 5, I'm going to give you some time to do independently. So let's look at number 3. My best friend was surprised that I was so firm in my decision. So the word firm, when you're firm, it means that you are decided. Nobody can tell you different. That has a neutral to positive meaning or connotation to it. So we need to replace that word firm with the negative word. So take a minute and see if you can find a negative word to replace the word firm. Okay, so we're going to put the word, if you're firm, and that's a positive word, and we need a negative word for firm. If somebody refuses to change their mind or their decision, what do they usually call you? If your mom says, you know, I really want you to change your mind, and you will not do it. So you're being very, and that word would be stubborn. Let's see if the word stubborn works here. My best friend was surprised that I was so stubborn in my decision. It works perfectly here. So stubborn has a more negative meaning or connotation to it. If somebody calls you stubborn, that's not necessarily a good trait. As more of, or not a good trait, more of a positive trait to have. So stubborn could work. Another word, very fancy word, is obstinate. And when you're obstinate, you refuse to move from your decision, and you just are stuck where you are. Now, if you didn't want to really use a word like that, you could just use a word like, my best friend was surprised that I refused to change my decision. Let's say you can't think of like an actual word like stubborn or obstinate. You could just describe that negative feeling in your own words like I just did there. So take about 5 or 6 minutes, and I want you to look at question 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And look at the word that you have to replace. Remember, you have to replace it with a negative connotation or meaning of that underlined word, and write them down on your piece of paper. Okay. If you need a few more minutes to figure out these answers, you can pause the video before I provide the answers for you. So if you need more time, just pause and then you can restart. Let's go on over number 4. I nervously held the script as I read my lines. So held is the past tense for the word hold. So you're holding something in my hands. I nervously held. If you're nervous, then you're like holding it really tight, right? And so the word that you could replace with held is clutched. And clutched is when you hold something really tight to you, okay? So the word clutched could work here. Number 5, my right leg shook as I faced the hero. So here's another nervous sentence, because if you're shaking your leg, usually you're nervous or you're bored or you're impatient. So we need a different word for shook. My right leg shook as I faced the hero. If you're scared of somebody, then you might kind of shake. So you could, a different word for shake though. So we're going to say, my right leg trembled. And when you're trembling, it means that it's a negative word for shaking. So there's your negative connotation, trembling. Number 6, when offered the part, I deliberated for a while. When you deliberate if you see the word for a while, then that means that they took a long time. So the word deliberate means that you think about something for a long period of time. Deliberate is a positive word. We need to replace it with a negative word. So a negative word for deliberated could be worried. When offered the part, I worried for a while. Another word you could use would be agonized. When you are in agony over something, you're really worried. When offered the part, I agonized for a while. All right, let's look at number 7. But then I decided that I spent too much time being shy. So spent is the past tense of spend. So when you're spending time, but it's taking too long, a negative connotation or meaning for spent would be wasted. But then I decided that I had wasted too much time being shy. Now, I hope that you notice for all of these 7 answers that the tense of the verb that we are replacing, because for the most part, we've replaced verbs. Well, we've replaced some adjectives as well, but you have to make sure that when you are replacing the word, that you are using the right tense of the word or the right form of the word. For example, number 4 was past tense. So the word that you would replace it with would be also past tense for it to be able to make sense. Let's go over number 8. Sometimes I wonder what kind of silliness I'll try next. So silliness has got kind of a neutral to positive connotation, and we need something negative. So what we're going to say is sometimes I wonder what kind of escapades I'll try next. So escapades is when you're doing something really adventurous and daring. You could also use the word antic. And antic definitely has a negative connotation because if you get into antics, it means that you are doing something that you should not be doing. If you have a different word, just check with a parent or a guardian and see if that works. Or you can always let me know as well. So we're going to go back and review. And I want us to review, excuse me. I want us to review what we did today. What is the definition for the word connotation? Do you remember it? What is the definition for the word denotation? Can you remember it without looking at your paper? When you write, think about the connotations of the words that you choose and the effect that they will have on your reader. So when you write, and we're going to write at the end of this week, when you write a short story or a paragraph and you choose certain words, are you using words that are positive, negative, or neutral? So at the bottom, I ask you one more question. Can words have a positive, negative, or neutral connotation? Why does it matter? If you write a short story and you use words that only have a negative connotation to it, what is that story going to be like? Is it going to be happy and exciting? Or is it maybe because of all of the negative words, it might be sad or dark? So I want you to think about when we do our writing activity at the end of the week, how your words that you choose can have impact on your readers. Tomorrow, just to give you a heads up, we will review connotation and denotation one more time with a really short 5-question activity where we will review, and you will do that activity on your own. And after that, we will learn how an author uses theme in a story and practice connotation and denotation, like I said in our review. Thank you so much for joining me on day 1 of our 8th grade lesson. I really look forward to seeing you tomorrow.